The next place I go to is the switch room, but it looks like a dog's breakfast.
It's a case of getting everybody to understand that the game's got to change.
Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to work that out. Hollow frame, because the frame is supposed to be full. You can hear that frame is not full. Stop tagging doors that aren't compliant.
New South Wales Building Commissioner David Chandler visited this 10-storey building 6 months ago. He found water leaking through the concrete walls of the Western Sydney apartment complex, spilling down the stairs and forming a pool in the basement.
People who want to use the fire stairs from this car park would have had to go up a wet stair, which is slippery and not appropriate. It's illegal not to have a dry fire stair.
He's returned to see what's been fixed, but has found more problems and says the building is still not up to scratch.
They've sent people back to do what I call patch-up, but they're still not compliant.
The Commissioner has tens of thousands of photos on his phone of shoddy workmanship from across the state.
An engineer should not have signed off on this.
He was appointed in 2019 and has been trying to stamp out bad practice ever since. But it's an enormous task. A state government strata survey in December revealed 53% of apartments registered since 2016 have at least one serious defect.
I think there was a rump of the industry that were not much better than the Wild West. I've called out about 20% of players and saying these guys didn't even understand what the road rules were, let alone playing by them. So they were out there operating without very little understanding of what they had to do and very little intent to behave anyway.
On Christmas Eve in 2018, about 3,000 people were forced to evacuate over fears the 36-storey Opal Tower apartment complex might collapse. About 6 months later, 130 people in Mascot Towers had to flee due to similar structural concerns. Shady Iskander is the chairman of the Opal Tower Owners Corporation and led the charge to get the building back up to code.
That process requires a lot of money. We are 392 apartments. So I went to every apartment owner and said, I need $2,000. I raised approximately $800,000 quite quickly. We were able to band together and unite the owners.
Because the defects were found within the statutory warranty period, the builder was obligated to fix them. Shady Iskander says their experience proves there needs to be more scrutiny before residents move in.
I can tell you from experience, we're one of the lucky ones. We know what's behind our gyprock walls. We know what's under our tiles. And the builder was cooperating with us.
These buildings can be rectified, particularly where the developer and the builder still exist and have a brand name that they want to protect. There, of course, will be circumstances where that's not available for every owner, but it's really important that defects are rectified because that affects the building on an ongoing and long-term basis and affects the value of the assets.
Lawyer Bronwyn Weir co-authored the Building Confidence Report for the federal government in 2018. She says there has been a lack of accountability over the past 2 decades.
Construction really changed in the mid to late 90s with some shifts by all Australian governments towards what we call a privatised model of building certification. And what that also meant was fewer inspections, but also led to lower levels of detail in documentation. So a combination of things, but generally the system is not robust enough.
In New South Wales, the Commissioner has strong powers to intervene under the Residential Apartment Buildings Act.
It gives me the ability to stop a project, to issue a prohibition order to stop a project getting an occupation certificate, and it allows me to issue building works rectification orders.
And he's been targeting developers.
You can't drain the ocean in one go. You've got to do it in stages. So when we looked at it and said, okay, where are we going to get the biggest impact? It was to focus on the developers. But no one should think now that as we come down through the next layers of the work, that licence holders and those sorts of players are off the radar.
He's woken up the industry. He definitely is bringing a positive change. Is it enough? I don't think so. I think more needs to be done prior to the building being built.
But you say, wouldn't it have been cheaper to do it right the first time?
David Chandler says he had about a dozen staff when he started. Last month, following a Labor election promise, the Building Commission was established, and now his team has increased to more than 400 people.
If I was the foreman on this job when I was a foreman, that would have all been pulled out and done again. So we'll be building on the legislation that we have, and we'll be becoming more proactive and moving from being less reactive or being predominantly reactive to really focused on how do we get in the front of this and really stop it.
State government data suggests the situation could be improving. Since 2017, the number of serious defects reported by strata managers has dropped year on year. Is it improving?
Look, I'd like to say it's improving, but you've got to be careful that you don't drink your own Kool-Aid. The fundamentals that I can see are telling us that there is change and there is movement of change.
This is going on all around the country. It's not New South Wales specific. The only difference we have now is that New South Wales is doing something about it. Whereas the other jurisdictions, they're talking about it. I don't think they can ignore it, but we're not seeing the action that we're seeing in New South Wales.